So thank you for coming and participating in the ONOS build. It's real pleasure to welcome you all and all your participation in ONOS, not only in this event, but all the contributions you have been making to ONOS. So I really appreciate that. I also want to start by thanking Samsung, who has been the host of this event. And as you can see, excellent facility. They provided excellent support to get everything organized. And so we really want to thank Samsung and Sohain for what they have done. Of course, Samsung is also an ONF partner, and they've been supporting ONOS, COD, and all of that, and we are thankful for that as well. We also have other sponsors who have been supporting this event. SK, Fujitsu, Huawei, SDNFE Forum, Adara, KIST, Mobigen, and then ON.Lab as the media partner. So again, thank them as well. So I think I want to spend the next half an hour to tell you about the state of ONOS. And I thought the best way to do is to summarize the most important points at the front. And then if you want to tune out, you are welcome to tune out. And I will go through some of the details. So I guess the first thing I want to say is that ONOS is on a path to become a critical platform for service providers. Okay, especially when it comes to the edge of the network or the future edge of the network. Clearly, in the context of COD and COD-related edge applications, ONOS is probably the only SDN platform that has the traction and the attention and the mind share of the community, and it is quickly moving into field trials and production use. Okay. The second thing is, of course, we have been, thanks to you all, we have been making great progress with ONOS. And when we think about progress, we think of them at least in three areas. One is ONOS as a platform itself. And there we are looking at features, functions, maturity of ONOS as a platform that can be deployed. And the next thing we look at is what are the use cases and solutions that people are building with ONOS as a platform. Because as you can imagine, ONOS as a platform by itself is not that much value. When you build use cases and solutions based on that, that is when it becomes really useful to service providers, and we see a lot of that happening as well. And then of course community. It's an open source project, and so the success of an open source project in the long run depends on the quality of the community and how community is engaged, how community is diversified, how they are continuing to participate and contribute. That plays a very important role. And as I will show you some data and you may be familiar with, that we are doing pretty well in terms of growing the community, keeping the community engaged, and all of that. At the same time, I don't think we can say we can declare success and go home and be happy. We still have a lot of work ahead of us. And again, when I talk about the work, there are two areas where I believe that the work is most important. Okay? So the first one is, now that ONOS has matured to the point it has, the next big thing is, can we really make it production ready? And can there be commercial offerings of ONOS that the industry can count on and depend on? Okay, so that is one very important thing. And in that area, I would say that we still have some work to do. And one of the reasons that it is moving slower than usual is that ONOS, if you look at it, is bringing a disruptive technology or solution to the field of networking in terms of the disaggregation, white boxes, and all of that. And when you bring such a disruptive solution to the marketplace, it does take longer for it to be absorbed and mature and be ready for production deployment. Okay. Another thing, as I said, in the long run, success of an open source depends on the community on a longer term. You cannot build a community for 6 months, for a year, get everybody excited, and then if the community doesn't stay engaged and continue to participate, it cannot sustain and we cannot have ONOS continue to be a viable platform for the industry. And so that is the second important area where we have to continue to work. So I think these are my high-level takeaways. And then now I'm going to just focus on details, and you can decide how much you want to tune in. But I think one more thing that you should tune in before you may want to tune out is I really feel that ONOS, ONF almost have some kind of a love affair with Korea. We work with many geographies, but if you look at the amount of participation, contribution that we have seen from Korea, it is pretty amazing. And the organizations that have been mostly participating and contributing are listed: Etri, State, Hugh, Kisti, Postec, Samsung, SK Telecom, and there may be a few more that I apologize if I am leaving them out. And if you don't believe me, if you look at number of contributions that are coming from Korea into the ONOS and ONOS-based use cases, it's really impressive. Okay? And we really appreciate that, and I want to thank you for, again, your participation and contribution. And that is one of the reasons we decided to come and bring ONOS Build to Korea. Of course, thanks to Samsung for hosting it as well. But because of this level of participation and contribution, it made a lot of sense. Okay? So now in the next 25 minutes or so, what I want to follow is this particular agenda. I want to give you a little bit of an idea about this larger organization called Open Networking Foundation. If you are paying attention to it, you may know that we used to have two organizations: Open Networking Lab, that used to build open source platforms and solutions, and that is where ONOS started, and Open Networking Foundation, that used to standardize Open Flow Protocol and evangelize SDN. During the last 6 months, we decided to bring these two organizations together. The organization is now called Open Networking Foundation, but its mission is a lot more aligned with the old Open Networking Lab mission, which is to build open source platforms and solutions for the industry. And I want to give you that larger context so that you understand where ONOS resides and how we are approaching having an impact on the service providers and their network. Then the second thing I want to focus on is the contributing to ONOS. That is talking about what we are doing so you can be more effective, you can be more successful, and we want to hear back from you what we can do to make you more successful in contributing to ONOS and taking your ideas into production network and having a real meaningful impact. Okay? And then I will talk about the state of ONOS in terms of platform, use cases, adoption, and the community. I should mention that I have an in general tendency to pack a lot of material, and when we are talking about ONOS, there is so much to share, and I'm very excited to share this all. And so it will depend on how much time I have. I might go through some of this material very quickly. Okay? So that is the plan. I hope so far I'm communicating, it making sense. Okay? Okay, so let me start with Open Networking Foundation, the larger organization. So this is kind of our mission statement, and for some of you may say, oh, every organization has mission statement, how does it matter, right? But it is very important to know what do we stand for, and what we are really trying to do is to help service providers or network operators transform their networks. And what really they want to do and what we want to help them is to transform their network into what we can say platform for service delivery. Okay? End of the day, networks are not particularly useful unless they deliver services. If we are end customers, either residential or enterprise or whatever customers we are, we care about services that the network delivers. And what the service providers and network operators want to do is to more and more turn their network into a platform for delivering services. And when they do that, what they want to do is to leverage disaggregation, that is merchant silicon, white boxes, open source, so that they can reduce the capex, they can reduce the opex, and still have programmability so they can create more innovative services. Okay? So that's what we're trying to do as part of Open Networking Foundation. And of course, we want to work with the larger industry so that it is not something ONF is doing by itself. We are trying to facilitate and help the industry go through this transformation as well. Okay, so as we try to do this, here is another slide that very nicely captures how we are doing it, what our challenges are, and how to think about the big picture. So if you look at the left side, what is shown there is a closed proprietary box. So today, if you look at any service provider or network operator, what they will tell you that we build our network with closed proprietary vertically integrated boxes that are not programmable. They bring high capex and opex to the service provider. And as a result, it becomes very difficult to create new services, new innovation on top of these boxes. So what we have been doing for the last 5 years or more, and that is one of the appeal of software-defined networking, is to leverage and to build platform using disaggregation, that is, break these boxes into forwarding plane and a control plane. Forwarding plane can be realized using merchant silicon and white boxes and open source. And then create solutions that the service providers can use and deploy. But when you try to do this, there is a huge inertia because our networking industry has existed for 40-50 years. It has operated in a particular way where vendors have dominated, vendors create these boxes, and that is how our industry has existed. So you bring about such a fundamental or disruptive change, there is a lot of inertia. So how do you overcome this inertia? So we are taking a two-pronged approach. So one-pronged approach is, end of the day, it is the network operators that deploy these boxes. They are the ones that operate the network. And as a result, we are working very closely with network operators to create a vision, to create what they really need. And that is kind of what is the push from the service providers or network operators. And then we want to also create a pull in the sense of that, end of the day, we want to work with service providers, and we want service providers to show that they are really interested in deploying solutions based on open source, based on white boxes, and they are willing to spend money on it. So if they show path to deployment, and if they show path to money and revenue, then the rest of the community can step up and really help make this particular thing possible. And so that is kind of the push-pull model we are trying to do and work very closely with the network operators. Okay? So when I say we work with network operators, you can see this is what our ecosystem looks like today. So you will see there are 8 network operators that we consider partners. So those are AT&T, China Unicom, Comcast, Deutsche Telekom, Google, NTT, Turk Telecom, and Verizon. So these are the leading service providers in the world. And when they are our partners, what we mean is that they are giving us serious amount of funding, they are giving us people, they are giving us use cases, and they are showing a path to field trials and hopefully production deployment. So they have a significant contribution and significant stake in what ONF is trying to do. Of course, we also work with number of vendors. Samsung is one of them. We really appreciate that. Another thing you should look at is the ONF board. And you will see there are some very, very influential people from service providers that serve on the board of ONF. These are the people who are steering the entire industry, and they are working with ONF so we can bring about the change we are talking about. Then, of course, we have other, large ecosystem as well that we are working with. Okay? So now let me introduce this idea of what we are calling innovation pipeline. So ONF is not about distinct open source platforms. So you may, in this context, you know about ONOS, but ONF is not about just one platform in isolation. What we are trying to do is to focus on this entire pipeline, all the way from devices. So if you look at the lowest end, you see disaggregated devices, white boxes, for packet switches, OLD, for eNodeD and radio access network, ROADM. So these are the devices, and we are working with the industry to do disaggregation, enable white boxes, separation of control from the forwarding plane on those devices. Then, of course, we are working with controller. ONOS is an example of an SDN controller. Then we build solutions. So if you are familiar with CORD, that is an example of a solution that we are building that is, of course, enabled by ONOS, but also with the disaggregated devices. And they will build virtual network functions, microservices, and then build solution and offer these solutions to service provider. And we put it together so that those end solutions are easier to consume and easier for service providers to take advantage of. And that is what ONF is focused on. Now you may focus on ONOS, but remember ONOS is part of this larger picture, and it enables this solution that the service providers want to use and consume. Okay, I will give you, okay, and by the way, when we bring these pieces together, we are trying to also change the way we do standards. So rather than doing the standard the old-fashioned way, where you start with standard, bring lots of people in a room, spend years trying to build consensus, what we are trying to do here is to build open source solution. And as we build the solution, bring pieces together, we derive the interfaces, we derive those APIs, and we standardize them, and we are calling them software-defined standard. And of course, we are also, as I mentioned, build solutions that are easy to customize and consume by the service providers. So let me give you little more details. So as I said, we are working with programmable forwarding planes with a variety of disaggregated devices. ONOS is the foundation and the control plane. And then we are working with, for example, on the access side, we are working with GPON as well as XGS-PON, and how we bring FDN based on ONOS to that part. We are also working with RAN, especially the XRAN protocol, so that we can bring software-defined networking to radio access networks, building leaf-spine fabric that is used in CORD, but it can be used in other contexts as well, and the packet optical. And then if you go into the context of CORD, we are building CORD as a solution. If you are not very familiar, I will maybe you'll come back, I guess Friday, and I will tell you more about CORD. But CORD is the central office re-architected as a data center, which is a complete solution that there is a lot of interest in service provider, and we are building that as part of ONF activity as well. And there are three varieties of that. The residential for GPON, then mobile for LTE as well as 5G, and then enterprise. And then there's a whole bunch of microservices or virtual network functions that we have implemented, and we are offering that as part of the CORD application and offering them to service providers. And there are 15 or 20 service providers around the globe that are either using CORD in lab trial, wanting to push into field trial, and hopefully into production deployment. Okay, so keep this in mind that when you think about ONM, it's not about individual platforms, it is about enabling the solution and offering the solutions to service providers. And then other people, either vendors, service providers, or third-party software vendors can plug into this and offer their solutions and ideas into this innovation pipeline as well. Okay, so that is kind of the quick overview of ONF. Now I want to talk about contributing to ONOS. Okay, so contributing to ONOS, when you look at yourself or your organization, it is all about, it starts with an idea, and that you want that idea to end up in a production network of as many network operators as you like. And that is the most rewarding aspect of doing work, right? Whether you are an individual, you are a company, what you want to do is transform your idea into something that gets deployed in a production network of many, many service providers. And what we are trying to do at ONM to make it easier for you and maximize the probability of this happening. Because a lot of times people work on ideas, they go nowhere. You may publish a paper or you may do a prototype and they go nowhere. So what we are wanting to do is to maximize the chances of your idea impacting a production network or getting into the production network. So the first thing we did in the context of ONOS is to create this virtuous cycle. You build a platform, you build some solutions, and then you get the solutions, interest from the service provider. And if you look at last 2 to 3 years, what we have been doing is to create this virtuous cycle and get service providers really interested in the solutions that are enabled by this virtuous cycle. Now, during the last year or so, and David and William are the people that are championing this, where what we're trying to do now is to create this idea of brigades. So you can come up with an idea, or you think this is an idea that should go into ONOS or enable a solution going to the service provider. You can either participate in one of the existing brigades, or you can start a new brigade, and as a result, you can move that idea into production network as part of a solution. And we want to make this process as easy and productive as we can, and that is what we are really focused on as we move forward with ONOS. So one thing we are doing as part of that is we are creating something called the use case steering team. So this is a steering team that is led by service providers primarily. Every service provider that is a partner is contributing a member to the use case steering team. So the service providers will tell what are the use cases they care about, what are the ideas and specific things they care about, and that will inform the brigades, and that will inform how the work moves and gets delivered to service providers to maximize the chance of success in terms of getting that work absorbed in the service provider's production network. Okay, so that's what we from the Open Networking Foundation side trying to do to facilitate this and maximize the probability of success for your ideas impacting the production network. So what can you do? So you can join, as I mentioned, an ongoing brigade, or if you think your idea is big enough and it's something that has not gotten enough attention, you can propose a new brigade and you can offer to be the leader of that brigade. And that is how you can participate and contribute, and we welcome you to propose brigades and lead brigades, and we want to help you. And then of course you can participate in ONOS activities more in terms of TST meetings, UCST meetings and other meetings, and that is how you can participate. Now, one of the reasons we are doing the ONOS build, of course there are many other reasons, but one of the things we want to do is to be able to hear from you what you think about what we are doing. So if you think our processes are not working for you, please let us know how we can do better. And almost all the key persons from Open Networking Foundation are here. The ONOS TST members are here. There are at least 4 TST members that are going to be here during this ONOS build event. So give your feedback to David, William, give feedback to me, Asim, Taiman from ONF. There is a TST chair, Thomas is here, Brian is here, Utah, and I think somebody else. There are at least 4 TST members. So give your input, share your input, and how we can do better and how we can make you more successful. Okay? So that is definitely very, very important aspect of this build event. Okay, so now in maybe 10 minutes or so, I will try to quickly go through the state of ONOS and, at a very high speed, try to tell you what all we have been doing. Okay, so SDN is about, ONOS is about scalability, performance, availability, all of this, I'm sure you're familiar with. So there are 3 things that you should pay attention to when we think about ONOS as a platform. The core, which is the middle part, which is the most important foundation of ONOS that gives us the scalability, performance, HE and all of that. So how is that distributed core evolving? What is happening on the application side and what is happening on the southbound? And so that is one way to quickly understand how ONOS is maturing. Okay? So when it comes to the core, again, maybe Thomas is going to talk more about it or you are more familiar. You can see how when ONOS started, it was pretty bare bones. And over the last couple of years, the number of boxes or number of functions or services that ONOS core offers is growing. Okay? And so that is one indication of how ONOS is growing and ONOS core is growing. I think I will not go into the details of this. Another thing you want to see is on the southbound. Are we southbound even though ONOS started with open flow protocol? You want to see whether there are other kinds of southbound protocol that ONOS is able to support and plug in. And so here is a slide that I prepared some time ago that is showing today. I don't have time to get into it, but you can see all different kinds of, oops, I clicked one more. Okay, so if you look at this, it's pretty impressive in terms of the different types of southbound protocol that people have been able to plug into ONOS. Some of them are very legacy protocols that maybe the pure play SDN people don't care, but interestingly, the vendors have been able to plug these legacy protocols into it. There are some very forward-looking things like P4 and the P4 runtime system that is getting connected into it. There are some XRAN, as I mentioned, as a protocol for connecting, bringing software-defined networking to RAN that are now getting connected, plugged into ONOS. So both a very good mix of old and new that are southbound protocols that are being supported in ONOS. Now, when you come at northbound, these are the functionalities you want: L2 forwarding, L3 forwarding, traffic engineering, and all of that. And in support of this, there are many functions, or you can call them services or applications, that are being added on top of ONOS over the last couple of years. And this is also a very comprehensive list, and it continues to grow with time. And again, here you will see some very new, forward-looking things, as well as some of the old things that people want to do on a network. Okay. Another thing that is very important is the dynamic configuration of devices and services using YANG or a model-based device and service configuration. So this is an area where ONOS was late. It did not start with configuration. We realized that we need to support not only control, we want to support configuration as well. And configuration is different from control. A lot of times people mix them, and that's a bad idea. Control and configurations are very different. So for example, when control, you're trying to specify or modify the forwarding behavior using flow table or flow table entries. And sometimes these things can change millions of times per second. Configuration is we are trying to change the configuration of devices, that is happening maybe a few times a second or something like that. And you need different types of solutions for that. Similarly for services, you may want to specify model-based services and be able to support them. And so this is an area where, yes, ONOS started a little bit late, but the good news is that it's now catching up, and there are many good features. Sometimes when you start late, there are advantages because you understand the requirements better, you understand what you can do, and as a result now ONOS is able to leapfrog and able to provide certain features that some of the other controllers don't have. Okay. Another very important thing is this in-service upgrade. So this is something really becoming a very important feature for production and commercial readiness, and this is starting to become available, and it should be ready for prime time, maybe the next release or the release after that. And of course, when it comes to performance and scalability, ONOS continues to be one of the leaders, the leader in the space. Now we have done 11 or 12 releases, and over all these releases we have either maintained the performance or done much better in some areas. And again, no controller even comes close to these kinds of performance and scalability numbers. Okay, I think I already covered this. When it comes to southbound, we have a good mix of old and new, and lately, at least within the ONF, the focus is more and more on new kinds of southbound interfaces like the P4 runtime system, XRAN, Volta, and these are the kinds of southbound protocols and interfaces that we are exploring and supporting them in ONOS. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, application, there is a whole proliferation of applications on top of ONOS, and they are in the different categories. And Thomas tells me that now we have 125 or 126 applications that the ONOS core supports. We are at a point in principle that we can create an app store for ONOS, and then you can use different combinations of these applications or services depending on what you need to do. Okay? I think I will skip that. I suppose this will be, Thomas may cover that. So I think I want to briefly talk about the use cases and adoption. So this is a very interesting slide that I got from Sienna, and I reuse it. So this is the one slide that kind of tells you at a high level what the service provider network looks like. Okay, and you can see there is a wide area core, then there are data centers, then there are many central offices, and across this whole thing, we are trying to bring SDN, NFV to all parts of this service provider infrastructure or the network. Okay, and so what I want to show is the different use cases that ONOS has been pursuing, and they cover the entire spectrum. So when you look at the wide area network or the core network, either in wide area or metro, we have been pursuing this use case that we call packet optical use case, then disaggregated ROADM, traffic engineering and PCE, FB and IP peering, and then finally the CORD, which is in the central office. Okay? So a lot of times when you think about CORD, you may think of it as a one use case for ONOS. Okay. However, what you should remember is that there are half a dozen use cases of ONOS that make up CORD. And a lot of times we don't realize that. So what I've tried to do is list here the different types of use cases that are part of CORD. And what is happening is that each use case by itself is important, and many service providers are taking those individual use cases and taking them into field trials and hopefully production. And you can read the list yourself. Okay. And then there are different adoption for the use cases, and these are the different service providers that are working on different use cases and taking them into lab trials, to field trials, and so on. And you can see that list is very impressive. They are across the globe. Okay, so I think I will spend 2 minutes on the community and then I will stop. Okay, so this is the highlight, right? There are approximately 70 organizations that participate and contribute to ONOS. They may not contribute to every release of ONOS, but if you take a release over a period of say 2 years, then you will see there are 70 organizations that have been contributing to different releases. If you take a particular release, you will see 120 or 125 contributors to a specific release. Now we have number of brigades, and we want to really focus on making brigades more successful, and that is how we want to grow the community and the community's participation and so on. Here is the collaborator growth. You can see this. This is put together by David. Very good. Here are different brigades that I think you can learn more. Now we are starting to do some of these more detailed analytics of the community, that where is the contributions coming from. And here is the first, I think just last week, we started to get these dashboards and this data on our community. And the thing you will see is that if you take a 1 year view, then there are 214 contributors to ONOS, which is a big deal, and there are maybe 20 or 30 organizations that may be on that list as well. Okay? And then if you take a 2 years, then there are 330 contributors, and the number of organizations grows even more. Okay, so I think these are my takeaways that I already mentioned. So at this point, I'm done. Okay.
Thank you very much, Guru.